How's it going, Blazers? We're going to bring you specifications you can relate to so you can have an educated decision on your purchases. With a lot of things going on in the community recently, there's a lot of things talking about blade steels and things that are happening. So the one thing I wanted to kind of show, which you've seen a little bit if you haven't gone to the actual spreadsheet, I'll take you through it a little bit so you have a little bit better idea as far as what we're looking at for the spreadsheet. So a few channels have the spreadsheet on it. I'm going to take you to mine. So if you go to Blade Banter, then you'll be able to go down to it. Any of the videos within the description, you'll be able to actually see the link for it, so you can actually go down to it. Click on any video. I'll just click on the most recent one, and then we'll take you into the video. And then down here in the description side, you can open this up, and then one of the first links is the steel PMI and also the Rockwell testing. So you click into this one, and then there's everything's going to be in alphabetical order. If I'm working on the list, then it'll be a little bit out of order at the bottom, because that's where I'm working on at that current time. But it's all in alphabetical order by brand, so that's where you can see it fairly easily on this sheet. So go through. This is all the knives that have been tested so far. So it's a great deal of knives that have been done. And then going through, this is data points. So we're not saying that if they're out of specification, then it's a horrible knife, or every single knife is out of specification. Some of these brands are heat treating up to like 1,000 knives at the same time, so there's going to be different points of the oven. There's going to be different things that are, that they're working with, different people that are in that whole process. So there could be some mistakes that happen with it, and it might not be every single knife that you're dealing with. But you start to see a little trend for some of the knives, and that's where you're going to be having some things that maybe become more valid. Because you're going to see, okay, well, this brand has this many knives out of specification, and then that's where you can kind of put that together instead of, well, okay, that one knife, and then you just totally don't buy that brand anymore. Well, no, that's not going to be the case for it. There's so many other different parts of the knives as far as what will cause it to be a good knife or a bad knife. There's going to be the heat treat side. There's going to be the geometry. There's going to be the primer grind, what secondary grind you have on it. Of course, it's going to be the, I heard it as far as the chemical soup, as far as Banter 24/7 puts it in that terms. So there's going to be potential for a really good process and a good steel, but then there's going to be the knives that are just poorly done as far as the heat treat that doesn't meet up to their chemical potential. So if you see on the right side, these are all the different channels that have participated within the steel testing. So these are the ones that are sending it over. So thank you again to Kurt. We don't want to burn them out. So do come through one of the channels so we can actually streamline a little bit of it, so he's not getting that shotgun effect of everybody sending knives and basically having to bring a truckload of knives down to the shop to actually get it done. So that's going to be all the channels there on the right. So a lot of the different steel testing, when we do the PMI side, when we're scanning with the gun, as far as getting the information as far as what type of composition was in the steel, that's where it's going to be something that's on the top side here. So any one of these blocks, if you click into it, or actually just, I guess, hover over it, it'll actually give you an idea as far as what that composition is. So if you actually go through it, then it actually will show you what this is. So if you go, okay, well, I don't know what MN is, well, okay, just go and put it over it. That's where I did add it into the sheet. So you can come over here and say, okay, well, this is what letter P is, and you can actually go through and run that down. So that's something that is useful, at least for me. And then also that information is provided by interestingengineering.com. So I did put them up there because that's where I grabbed all this information for each one of these, all this information here. So all these little blocks, so you can actually get that information there. You can scroll over and then actually see all these. So even the LOD, limit of detection. So there's going to be a lot of them that say LOD on it. So those are the ones that you actually don't, it's actually not reading anything, or it's basically so small where it's not picking it up, something within that type of element. So that's where it's going to say LOD on it. So that's going to be up here as far as limit of detection, and then it gives you a rundown as far as what that is. So hopefully that's making sense as far as what is on the sheet, and then you can make your own determinations from the data that's provided But do not just take one piece and kind of go off and run over and go, well, this knife is horrible, and I knew they're bad and everything else. It's like, no, I mean, take it back a little bit. That's where everybody that's involved with it is trying to break it down and get information, because a lot of this information wasn't available before, and that's something that is just fantastic about it, is we're getting some of this information. And really where this all started from is there was a lot of talk about different countries maybe having the incorrect steel, so they're stamping something on the blade, and then they're actually giving us something else. So it's like, well, there was always kind of the underlying thing of like, okay, well, we're getting the wrong steel, and then come to find out, we're actually getting the right steel. So the steel side of it is correct for a good portion of it. There are still some that were not correct, and that's something that is still some concerns with some of them. So I'll take you down to one of them that I personally loathe a little bit. The reason being is I tried to reach out through email, I tried to reach out through a phone call, I tried to do all those things before I even put anything up, and I got just ghosted. So that's the one that I don't like a lot on a personal basis. So myself, so LA police gear, so Los Angeles police gear, shame on you. So this is where it is as far as the steel, and then also the HRC for some of these. So that's where like this Gen 1, so this one, the pocket clip was tipped down for Gen 1. The Gen 2s, they're actually proper steels, so S35, S35. So this is, they didn't advertise anything, so that's where you're going to come over to this side. So one of the columns that you're going to have on it is going to be the Rockwell advertised. So if the company actually said, this is what we're going to be giving you, and then this one is going to be from the actual steel manufacturer as far as the aimed hardness for a knife. And so that's going to be going off of just what is on their steel composition sheet. So yes, there could be other heat treats that could be better for cutlery, but I guess let's get to the first step as far as this is what the steel manufacturer is saying is a aimed hardness for the steel, and then let's just get there. I mean, that's going to be the first hurdle, and then of course after we get to that point, then yes, we can take it on further and actually go, okay, well, now that you're there, and then you kind of played around with the heat treats and actually know, okay, well, now you can push it to this level, then yeah, I mean, take it there. But so LA Police Gear, they didn't advertise anything. For S35, basically the aimed hardness would be 58 to 61, and this is where they were, 52, 51.2. This one was not actually S35, this is like 440C, but the hardness was better, so 57.9. So most likely this is going to perform better, even though it's not S35, it will probably perform better than this S35. So that's where you're going to have some of these steels that are like, okay, well, it's a better steel, it has more potential, but it does not perform as well because, well, they didn't do the heat treat correct. And on the flip side of that, so we'll go over to, let's see, so Ganzo FH11. This is the one that was like this super amazing, like this inexpensive knife, giving us great heat treat, 62 on the Rockwell scale. D2, it was D2. It's like, okay, this is going to perform really well. And then Super Steel Steve had his tests where he did it, and it just fell on its face. I mean, it didn't perform where we thought it would for that 62, and the reason for that is it was 62, but most likely they heat treated it, and then there's another part of temper in it, which actually kind of ease everything up. And as I think in Steve's thing, as far as like, puts it into food terms. So I mean, the steak is like kind of muscle, so like when you heat it up and you cook it, and everything kind of tightens up and everything on it, and then you have to let it rest, and then letting it rest is that tempering where you take it up to a set temperature, and then it kind of lets everything kind of loosen up a bit as far as that. So that's where there's a heat treat, and then there's a tempering. So this is probably heat treated, and then it got to that 62, and they probably didn't temper it. So that might be a factor of, well, they're providing you with a knife of such a low cost, they're cutting out basically a good part of the actual process, which will give you a better knife. So that's where also D2 is coming to be maybe probably not the best foreign knife production. So I know that's what the community asked for, and that's what the companies are giving us, but that's where we might want to just rethink some of the things that we're doing as far as the community goes. Like that's kind of where we are even with the M390, which is the super steel. So we're seeing a lot of those things as far as we're getting these super steels, but then they're not being heat treated correctly. So a lot of those came in. I mean, Benchmade had some of them as far as their new knife. So that was one thing that kind of came up with that. Where is it now? Benchmade. So I mean, most of them are pretty good. So on this left side, so I made it pretty easy to kind of look at. So the steel side check mark is that it was good, and then basically the HRC, it's either within the range, below the range, or it's going to be above the range. And the range would be from the steel manufacturer side, not our personal preference, not something that we're saying that it will do better at, but by the people that are actually producing the steels and actually developing the steels, that's their aimed hardness for it. So that's where some of these are above, some of these are below for some of these here, but that's where you're going to have some of these written out of scale for Benchmade, but you're going to have some of those that are going to be different for each manufacturer across the way. And then I actually did these two. So if you actually bought the Christmas pack, the Buck Christmas pack, then I did a double check here, and the reason for that is because it advertises 420 HC, and actually it seems like everybody got 14C 28N, so it actually was better steel than you were even expecting in the box, and that could happen with some of the manufacturing as well. But we're going to go down to, I guess, where we're having some of the issue with. So here, so some of the ones that we're having. So if this is just one point, then yes, I mean disregard it. But that's where we're going to have multiple points that are below the mark. So the line steel one is kind of the issue with that currently. And that's where we're not trying to make it difficult. We're just like, this is what we're getting, and this is kind of an issue. I mean, this is what they're advertising is 59 to 61, 60 to 61, 60 to 62. Basically, the aimed hardness is 60 to 62, and then this is what we're getting back on the HRC testing. So 52.8, 50.9, and then this one's 56.3. So if it was off by a point something, even one, I mean, okay, well, I mean, you're almost there. But this is kind of going back to the food side. If you're going to order like chicken, which you can get salmonella from, and you have to cook it to a certain temperature, and then they don't, then that might not be the best thing for you. So that's where they're saying that they're going to give it to you at a certain temperature where they're giving you the product and result, and then they're giving you one that is not there. So that's where some of that is coming about. So even some of these other ones are also within that manufacturing realm, which is, these are not hitting that mark. So this one's almost there. So I don't really have an issue with that one. Granted, it would be nice to be above in that range, because that's even what they're still telling you that you're going to get as far as that one mark, which is probably not the best thing to do, is to just say we will hit this mark. It's better to have a range as well, because you're manufacturing something, you're going to have different things that happen for your knife. So that's something that you might want to look at for that. But so this is how the sheet works. So look at the sheet, gain your own understanding of it. If you have questions, reach out, ask us about it. Don't jump on a tear. Don't bring out your pitchforks and your torches and everything else and go after these companies. But ask questions, figure what's going to be happening with it, and so we can actually improve the market. We want to still be positive. There's the best community out there for the knife community. So that's one that we want to maintain, actually have a really good experience with it, be able to have a good time with the hobby, even though sometimes it does take over your life a little bit too much, but that's kind of how those things go. So easy thing with it. So going from left to right again. So steel, check mark, double check mark, or on these, like it just, I don't know, because some of the, like Damascus is kind of multi-ranged. And then even if you're looking for Ozark Trails, that one is on here. So they, basically, they don't advertise as far as what type of steel you get in the first place. So that's why there's no check mark here at all. But it was within spec for what it was, like 3CR13 for some of these. So HRC, so within, below, or above, and there's also be color coded, so that one's above, and then you're going to have a brand, model, and then you're going to roll over to Rockwell advertised if they did, and then an aimed hardness from the steel manufacturing company, what the actual Rockwell was. And this rolls into, okay, what steel did they advertise it being? What steel did we test it at? And then if it is a titanium handle, did it test at the proper titanium? And then NA for most of them, if it's going to be G10, micarta, or something else. And then you're going to roll into the actual steel compositions. So you're going to have these that go all the way down, all these elements. So then click on these or hover over it to actually get an understanding as far as what these elements are. Then you can research that a little bit further if you want to actually figure that out. But like this titanium, TI, so that's what the elemental breakdown is of titanium. And then you're going to roll over more. And these are the channels that actually provided it for the testing. So this is going to be the breakdown for it. This is the data. So go over to it, utilize it. I mean, it's something that it is a live living document. So as I update it, then when you click on it, again, you'll have the most updated information. So you don't actually need to save it, or I need to provide you a different link. Same link takes you to the new document. So thank you to Google Sheets. It's been fantastic. I mean, this is something that we're trying to figure out when we first started, because people were testing, and then we just didn't have, we weren't documenting any of it. So it would have been a horrible loss if people were testing and then they did not want to participate. So if they said, well, get your own results, and these are mine, that would have been a horrible thing to do for the community. But all these people are providing information to the spreadsheet, and we're compiling it, building data, so we kind of have a better idea as far as what's going on within the knives that are out there in the community, and these data points, because this is across the country, different areas, different time periods. So that's where if you see something that's kind of building as far as just incorrect, then that's where, well, I mean, you can kind of put it together by yourself. I mean, some of these effing ground knives that are through Amazon, there are a lot of rebrands, so that's where you're going to get some that aren't even matching up to what they're advertising as far as what the steel is. Then you have Fura. I don't know if they're still around anymore, but they're the same thing. I mean, they weren't giving you the proper steel for those, so those were kind of ones to kind of be wary of for that. But let me know as far as if this was something that's good and important to you. So again, do not use this data as a specific reason to buy or not buy a knife. This is just data points. We're building this scale. We're trying to be consistent with what's going on, and then that's where this information is coming out. So the more we do it, the more things will make sense. But there's so many other points to it. There's other legs to it. I saw on like Blade HQ has kind of a graph that kind of shows all the different points to a steel, and then you just have different things that are out there as far as that balance point, as far as hardness, and as far as the toughness of a steel and geometry. So there's a lot of things that go on with that. So just don't be one-sided on it. And don't be rude to people out there as well. There's just a lot of things going on. So look at the sheet. So in the description, at least mine, if you want to go over Blade Banter side, then you can go to the link, and it'll take you to the spreadsheet. Read it over. It is a read only, which is a good thing, because I didn't want anybody changing my stuff. But this is everybody's information compiled into one location, that we're trying to help the whole community. So support those folks. Educate yourself if you want to. If you don't, then take some of our recommendations. But that's what's going on. Hopefully it's enjoyable for you. If it is, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the other folks' channel as well, and thank you very much for your time.